Hello and welcome everyone to this rather cloudy Sunday evening, and today I thought like testing out my new smartphone camera which I'm using for all the recording stuff right now. And yeah, I kinda wanted to know what it can do. I also brought my old smartphone and maybe to do a comparison. And instead of just uploading that footage, which would be a really replaceable content, I thought I will also talk a bit I'll talk a bit about stuff that's coming up, when to expect new content and what I'm working on right now and how the whole situation is going right now. So, my first semester at university is over as of now for about 3 weeks. All the final exams are over, and yeah, I'm waiting for all the results. And normally I would be on vacation right now, but yeah, I also have to do some practice work. So right now I'm helping out at a local company, and that eats up quite a lot of time, and it looks like I will also be there until the end of the vacation period. So yeah, it will not be I basically have no real free time. So yeah, not really a lot of time right now, but it's not like it's a 7 to 4 job basically. But sometimes I can go a little earlier, sometimes it takes some more time to get finished. So yeah, it's a bit random from day to day. And yeah, so in regards to content, I already said in one video, or I put a text into a video where it said that I'm going to make a video about my new Ryzen-based test bench that's coming up. I'll probably start working on that today, but I also have 2 other video ideas, and depending on how complex I'm planning on making that video, it will be it will be in progress a little sooner or later. And the camera lost focus. There it is. So yeah, so one video that is definitely in the works for quite a while now, but I haven't really done anything until now. Yeah, it's the Ryzen system. So yeah, basically I got a new CPU, a new motherboard, and basically I completely overhauled my testing system, which was previously also a game hosting system, which was based on an Ivy Bridge i5. And yeah, like for GTX 580s that's probably enough, but for like my 780 Ti's and my 980 Ti, that's yeah, you need some more CPU power so the card doesn't end up being bottlenecked. So yeah, I got a new CPU and motherboard, one that you can actually overclock. I also got some new RAM, but I got into my main system. The testing system now has the old RAM from my main system, which is Hynix AFR. So there's not a lot going on with RAM overclocking, because it literally can't go faster than 3200 CO16. So yeah, I have one stick of Hynix CJR, which I got up to 3666, but the timings were really bad and it also wasn't really stable. So yeah, I'm also just starting out on RAM overclocking, so that might take a while until I can do some video-worthy stuff. But yeah, let's talk about the other things. So the other things that I planned was a basic guide, so to say, on how GPU PCBs are configured. Yeah, I think I will do this video today. That's probably the easiest to do. So yeah, so I will basically be taking some pictures of GPU PCBs, and then I'll point out what is what component. Will be pretty basic, so I say like, this is the GPU, this is VRAM, this is the VRAM, and this is how you can identify it, because yeah, doing stuff yourself is faster and most of the time also better than just looking up onto the internet and hoping someone did a PCB breakdown for you. So yeah, I'll be talking about yeah, basically how you can identify what is what on a PCB, how you can get data sheets, and how you can more or less evaluate if it's a good or bad thing, what's on the PCB. And then another thing, like, I do have two 780 Ti's, but one of them is really, really bad and the other one has a defect, so to say. So I can't really do anything with both of them at the same time. But my GTX 580s are both perfectly functional. And yeah, I'll be doing something with those. And yeah, so okay, lost focus again. Yeah, I think it's also a good moment to switch over to the old camera and see what that can do. So I'll be seeing you later. So I went a little further ahead to not disturb anyone in the village that I was slowly entering. And now I'm also on the old camera, and it should be pretty apparent that it is a different device. The sound quality should be lower. I think the FOV is also lower, and there should be a lot of noise. So for this video I am not going to use my denoising plugin to improve both render time and also the visual difference from the two cameras. So yeah. And yeah, this is 1080p. I record 1080p on both my cameras, but on my newer one it specifically states that it's 60 FPS, whereas here it just says 1080p, so I think it is 30 FPS. I never actually bothered to check because my old videos were always just 30 FPS because of file size. Yeah, but yeah, image stabilization should also be a little worse. Of course, I'm still using my Xeon or Gwin, or however they're called, Smooth 4. So, except from this, video stabilization should be pretty good. So, yeah. But let's get back to the talking that I wanted to do. So, I want to do a comparison between my two GTX 580s. That's not going to be an overclocking battle between those two, because I think we already know that the Lightning will win. But I'll be doing a both cards on their stock settings, so to say, comparison. So it means stock voltage, stock cooling solution, and yeah, also more or less stock BIOS. I'll not reflash the ASUS one for that. I just go to a lower voltage because I only raised the voltage in the BIOS mod, so I just dial in the previous maximum that it would go to, which was 1.15 volts. So yeah, and yeah, why I want to do this is to show the difference between two iterations of the same card. And I am lucky because both cores on the card are like less than 1% apart in ASIC quality. So the silicon lottery is not really a factor, at least for the GPUs. Memory is Samsung on both of those, but the Lightning is better in terms of that. But it's likely, very likely, not a difference in silicon quality. It is a cooling issue, which is exactly my point by making this video, because I want to make, I want to show a difference between custom cards. Like, none of these are reference. Both of these cards are actually quite a lot better than reference GTX 580s. So both of these cards are what someone who would care about overclocking would consider. People don't overclock with just by reference, it's the cheapest. So yeah, and I want to show that. Oh, the wind is kicking in really heavily right now. I hope the sound quality isn't too bad. I obviously don't have my studio mic with me right now. Yeah, it's also getting rather dark. There's the moon up there. Oh, and it's just a white dot on this camera. Well, at least the waves are kind of in a good quality. Yeah. So as I've said, I will use both of them on their stock heatsinks, so air cooling and not water cooling, like I did in the in my overclocking attempts. That will also be a thing, but later, because that will take a lot of time, and as I've said before, I don't really have a lot of time right now. And yeah, so I want to show the difference between PCB quality, the BIOS quality, so to put that in quotes, and also the cooler quality. So both of these cards are custom ones. Both have the same style of air cooler, both have two fans, which are really powerful compared to what you get today. And yeah, and both also have a custom BIOS, so both allow you more voltage than stock. If I remember correctly, Nvidia only allows you to go to 1.087 volts on their stock cards, which is likely because of thermal thresholds, and also the VM might not be strong enough. So GTX 580's reference are 6 phases, so that's 2 less than the Asus and 6 less than the Lightning. And yeah, so of course the Lightning was probably more expensive, and it is also much more extreme, but you will still see a difference, because one thing that I immediately noticed with the Asus card is that the cooler is not adequate in my mind. Oh, it's really getting dark now. The camera shows a really dark image, but actually it's not that dark. It's like, yeah, it's not even 6 p.m. So yeah, I'm gonna switch back to the. I think I'm gonna switch back to the new camera, because sound and image quality and overall watchability of this video. So I'll be right back. So we are back at the new camera again, and now we are actually reaching also the limits of this one. So you can see it's getting pretty noisy. It also has some focus issues. So yeah, you see it right there. So it just walks itself completely. I think it's just too dark. Like this, it can focus on this pretty good, but it's basically all black and blue. So I'm just gonna leave it there, I guess. So yeah, and I completely forgot what I was talking about. Great. So yeah, I'm just gonna pick up with the cooler stuff. I don't know if I was further than that. So the cooler of the Asus DirectCU 2 GTX 580, it came in, and it was in really good condition. So my Lightning, it still smells of nicotine to this day, and I've had it for like 2 to 3 months now, and it still smells of nicotine, and you can clearly see it that card was abused pretty hard, whereas the DirectCU 2 was in almost pristine condition. The only bit of dust that I could find was sticking to the silicone oil coming out of the thermal pad from the VRM. Other than that, the card was completely clean. It was like basically new. And so yeah, and even in this very good condition, even after changing out the thermal paste to a high performance thermal paste like Cryonaut, the cooler just it just wasn't good enough. So the cooler is designed in a way which is pretty typical for ASUS. Might not be true anymore because their new heatsinks are rather beefy, but older heatsinks from them, or heatsinks on less powerful cards, like my RX 570, my GTX 980 Ti, they have all coolers that are pretty similar to the GTX 580 cooler, which is a thin stack that's actually not that big. And like, apart from the 980 Ti, which has a lot of heat pipes, it's also not a cooler with that much heat pipes. And so the cooler by itself is not that good, but ASUS compensates for that by putting on really, really powerful fans. So, like, several people have told me how loud ASUS cards are, and I've experienced this myself with, well, all my ASUS cards. They get really, really loud because they have very, very powerful fans. And yeah, I guess my smartphone doesn't want to do a proper picture anymore. I think I'm gonna have to use the... Yeah, that's a pretty good moment to test out the nightscape mode of my camera, because it has that. So let's test that. Never mind, it only goes for pictures. I thought you can also do videos with it, so no, you can't. So back to the blurry mess, but at least the audio quality should be good. So yeah, the ASUS card has a really, really powerful fan assembly and then a rather under-specced heatsink. And in terms of the 980 Ti and the RX 70, that works pretty well if you can put up with the noise that it makes. And in terms of the RX 580, GTX 580, it was equally as loud and annoying, but it also wasn't cooling good at all. It, like, with the old thermal paste, it instantly climbed in the high 90s. With new thermal paste, it pretty easily touched high 80s and low 90s. So that's not what you would expect from a custom GTX 580. To be fair, it's not the most powerful GTX 580 that ASUS had. That would be the Matrix, I guess, I believe, and not the Direct CO2. But I have seen pictures of the Matrix cooler, and it looks to me like it's the exact same cooler. It's just using a different PCB with a 10 or 12 phase instead of an 8, I think. So yeah, problems also there. And yeah, so my comparison will be primarily about thermal performance, because when we did the run with the GTX 580 Direct CO2 on ice, I didn't have the Lightning back then, or I had it and I didn't want to test it. Yeah, thing is, when we cooled down the PCB, like every time I run it, I have two fans, one blowing at it and one sucking up the hot air from above. So yeah, I want to keep the VRM and the video memory cool by doing that. And the memory always got pretty hot. VRM also. The VRM of that card is a mess. So it ran really hot on memory. And what I discovered is, when we cooled the card down, it picked up a lot of extra memory performance. And like 23-25 is the max it can do on water cooling, and also stock. When we chilled it, so the cold traveled from the core to the memory, and the memory got colder to the touch, it picked up a lot. We got to 25, maybe 2600 megahertz, which is Lightning territory. The Lightning can do 2500 around there. So the silicon is capable of doing it, it just has to be cold enough. And all ASUS cards that I have do not have memory cooling. They all just have bare memory modules sitting on the PCB, just being cooled by air that comes by. And I believe that is a really big problem, because as you can see, when you cool down properly, you can get a lot of additional performance. And the Lightning card, it has memory heat sinks, and it also has a temperature sensor for memory, and those modules never go above 46 degrees, which that could be around where the Dark CO2 was, maybe a bit hotter than the Dark CO2 on ice, but it's running a lot cooler than the Dark CO2 on stock. So yeah, that's one potential reason for getting one card over another. And then also the main heatsink and also the PCB. So the Lightning absolutely destroys everything else with its PCB. But there are some other issues with the Direct CO2 card with its PCB that I want to address. So yeah, I will also be talking about that. So yeah, PH7030AL and PH5030AL MOSFETs, even though you have two of them in parallel, that's still, like, if I remember correctly, like PH5030ALs are on the low side, if I remember correctly, and the 50 is an indicator for RDS on. So it's 5 milliohms RDS on, which is really high. So it's a good thing you have two of them in parallel, but that's still 2.5 milliohms RDS on. And compared to the Lightning, which has like 1.7, that's a lot of RDS on. That's a lot of power that's getting wasted, that's a lot of heat that the VRM puts out, and it does get really hot. And yeah, so that's also another thing. And then I might also do a fourth video. Yeah, I will probably also do a PCB overview of the 560 Ti 448. So there's that, because it's no longer going to my friend, because it, well, it spontaneously died, more or less. It's not like the 470, which just doesn't work anymore. It still works, boots up, and it's just, yeah, it has the exact same problem that my 780 Ti has. And that problem is fixable. So you can go around it by flashing a custom BIOS that has a lower memory speed, which works for my 780 Ti. And so in that condition you can use the card again, but it's going to be pretty slow. And then you could also just swap to the memory modules, which I want to do for my 780 Ti, it's just I don't have the option to do it right now. And it's probably going to take a long time until I can do it, but I still want to do it because, well, it's my 780 Ti. I used this card for over 4 years, and I do not want to lose it. So yeah, I want it alive again. So the 560 Ti 448 has the exact same problem. It's just that, so first, it's a 448 variant, not a normal 560 Ti. It's using a GK110 GPU instead of a GF... what was this? GF114, GF116? I think it was a 114. So a GF110 instead of a GF114. So yeah, it's basically a GTX 470. So technically it's just a GTX 470 from GPU and memory, and also VRM if you're looking at custom 470s. So yeah, And that card is like, yeah, so it's a 448 variant. And all the BIOS editing software that I have does not recognize this card. I cannot create and flash a custom VBIOS for this card, which could fix, in quote mark, the problem. The only way to fixing it would be swapping the memory modules. And I'm not doing that on a card that cost me 30 euros. Like a card like my 780 Ti, which is still very usable and also has a lot of sentimental value to me. Yeah, I will do that for that card, but not for a random card from eBay that cost me $30. So yeah, I can make a PCB overview of it, and yeah, then maybe I can make a power board out of the card. So, like, the VRM still works perfectly fine. I checked with the multimeter, VRM still works. And, yeah, maybe I can saw off the VRM, depends on if there is a 5-volt LDO on the left side of the card. If it has one there, it's a problem. It's not a problem that's a end thing for me, it's just it makes it more complicated. So yeah, I could do some stuff with the VRM of the card. It's also using PH7030 and 5030 ALs. So yeah, those MOSFETs are not bad. They're not that great. But like the card had better cooling than the Direct CO2. I think the cooler also fit. No, it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't fit. I was thinking about if I can just put on the heatsink of the 560 Ti 448 and look if it cools better, but yeah, that heatsink doesn't fit cards that have two DVI slots on top of each other. So, the Direct CO2 has. So, yeah, it doesn't fit. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the stuff I wanted to talk about. And now it's way too dark to do any comparisons. Yeah, I could basically talk about. Yeah, I could talk a bit about video making process. So this is my new camera now. It's a OnePlus 7T Pro, and I really like it. I especially like the close-up shot version. So you, if you watch the 580 Lightning PCB video, there were these pictures of the various PCB components. I took that with the close-up function. I really like that. And yeah, so basically the camera is pretty great, except for now it's just way too dark and it can't distinguish between anything. You can see how the sky changes the color depending on how I tilt it. Yeah, the camera is pretty confused right now. Maybe if I... Nah. Yeah, I can I can film the ground, but okay. Enabling the flashlight doesn't do anything really. Yeah, so this is my new camera and also my new smartphone, so I daily drive this thing and I really like it. The only problem is that the screen is, even for someone with big hands like me, the screen is slightly too large for my liking, but I think I'll get used to that. Like, I have this smartphone for less than 2 weeks now. No, exactly 2 weeks. Yeah, I have it for exactly 2 weeks now. And yeah, so I'm getting used to that. And then my old smartphone was a Nokia 6.1. And so this smartphone, this OnePlus right here, which is not filming anything anymore, it's just grey soup. Maybe it, if I can still see the moon a bit. Yeah, so this OnePlus right here, it's a 750 euro phone. Like, OnePlus is coming out with the 8, the new smartphone, so this is probably gonna drop in price a little bit. But as of now, it costs 750 euros. You can get it for like 730, 740 on Amazon. And then my old one, my Nokia 6.1, it's a. We got it for 200, and then like a day later, it dropped to 150 and stayed there. So it's effectively a 150 euro phone, and for 150 euros, it's actually pretty good. Like, I like that smartphone a lot, given its price. It's just that, like, I like my videos to be watchable, and the amount of video noise that this camera produced, like, I had to buy a video denoising plugin for Vegas Pro, which cost me like 70 to 80 euros just to get rid of all that noise, because it was so bad. Like, this actually the video where I used it. It's not just when it's dark like that, it's always like that. It always has this much noise, and it almost feels intentional. Like they intentionally made the camera worse, because the pictures it takes are pretty good. It's just not, yeah, it can't really deal with bright lights that great. So if everything is bright, it's good, but if there are bright and dark regions in a picture, it can't really deal with that. But apart from that, the pictures are pretty good. It's just the videos are really bad. And yeah. So, and another thing is, it has expandable storage other than this smartphone right here. So it has expandable storage, and I actually bought an SD card for it, because the 32 gigs that it comes with, well, the operating system and the pre-installed apps already take up almost 20 gigabytes of the 32 you have. So you can pretty much not have anything on it if you install like a couple games or take a couple videos. And so that's why I got an SD card. And that's one thing that annoyed me, because it is expandable, but it's not. You can put an SD card in there and it will recognize it, it just won't format it. So you can use it as internal storage, which means you can't put any apps on it, and you can only access it with a File Explorer app. And if you're lucky, maybe your camera app has an option to use a custom saving location. Then it will save to the SD card. But other than that, the SD card is pretty much useless. So yeah, that's the thing that annoyed me, because it was said nowhere in the marketing that you can't use it as internal storage. And apparently you once were able to do that, but there was a firmware bug which led to data loss or something, and instead of fixing it, Nokia just disabled the internal storage option, which I find really annoying. So yeah, and also I was able to deal with the noise through my plugin, and I also had an app that thankfully saved to the SD card. But then what led me to the moment where I said, like, okay, I'm gonna get a new phone. It was the moment the camera started not saving stuff. Videos I made, pictures I took, they just weren't there. And then I caught up some other weird software things, and yeah, so not great. And yeah, that was the moment where I said, okay, no, I'm gonna get a new smartphone. So now I have a OnePlus 70 Pro, and I want to keep this phone for a long while. Like, I'm not gaming on phones or anything, so what hardware is in them is not really that important to me. I want a good camera and I want enough storage. And the very good display of a smartphone is also a plus. So, yeah. And right now I'm also entering another village again. So yeah, I also, yeah, I pretty much talked about everything I wanted to say. So I'm gonna get home now. It's getting really dark. The moon has also vanished behind some clouds. And yeah, I'm gonna get home now, and I'm probably gonna start on making... Yeah, I think I'm gonna work on the GPU PCB video. Oh look, there's lights. Maybe it can focus. Ah, okay, that's okay. Like, it still doesn't look great, but my old smartphone 100% wouldn't be able to do this. So yeah, I think I'm gonna end it here. So thanks for watching this very, very improvised video, even more improvised than my other videos. And yeah, I'm gonna get home now and start working on the... I'm gonna pick one of the video ideas and start working on it. Like, I could realistically finish the video today. It's probably like 6 PM right now. And so yeah, yeah, maybe I can upload it overnight. So yeah, maybe there will be another video shortly after this. So, but I think I'm gonna end it here. And so yeah, thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.